Welcome back to This Week in Gaming, the show where I recap everything I talked about in gaming news over the last week, in case you missed it. Alright, let's talk about it. Starting with Steam calling out MasterCard for lying about having nothing to do with censoring video games. Because when Steam told them that the games that they have are all legal, MasterCard and all the other payment processors came back saying that MasterCard has a rule that says that they're allowed to remove payment processing if they run the risk of processing something that could besmirch their name. But then GOG decided to protest by giving away those adult games. GOG, always being the good guy, bought a website in which they just gave away all the adult-oriented games that were taken down from Steam and itch.io. The logic being, if we give away the game, then you don't have to process a payment, so we can just do whatever we want. And then in BioShock news, it turns out that the franchise is in trouble with a cancellation and a complete rework from the ground up. Because according to an insider, BioShock 4 was a good game, but in order to make it great, they had to completely scrap the story and start again. And that same leaker said that the BioShock remake has also been shelved indefinitely. And then in Sony news, people are wondering if Sony is pulling out of console exclusives due to leadership making a specific statement. Recently, the leadership at Sony said that they're changing their focus, no longer being so hardware-centric, but instead focusing on things like player acquisition and retention, which now has people wondering if Sony is no longer going to be so worried about exclusives and instead trying to get their games on all platforms. And continuing with Sony, their lawsuit may have Tencent scared because they're trying to wipe all evidence away, including on the Steam page, removing the images that look like Horizon Zero Dawn, changing the phrasing within the description, and even removing words like Mechanimals. It seems like Tencent is trying to appease the gaming giant. And continuing with Sony news, an insider has confirmed that Starfield is coming to the PS5, except it's not happening anytime soon. According to this leaker, Starfield was supposed to come to the PS5 this year, but they decided to push it back because Starfield just sucked. And so now it's been decided that the game's going to be pushed until next year when they release the new DLC and the new update, which is supposed to make gameplay better, in hopes that that will give the game a better chance on the PS5. And now with Nintendo news, starting with the Indie World Direct. And like a lot of Directs, there were some games that were pretty boring and forgettable, but there were some that stood out, like Glaciered, Winter Burrow, Content Warning, Mina the Hollower, Well Dweller, and Never Away. And I talked about Switch's co-op sale, which is on right now and for the next week or so. And there's even some first-party games like Mario Golf and Kirby Star Allies. And then a bunch of YouTubers announced that keycards are dead and the proof is definite, and they were wrong, because there was a post on Blue Sky looking into Macronix, which is the company that was making the chips for the Switch 1 games. But they hadn't made any for the Switch 2 games because a company called ROM was doing that. Yet in the same post, it highlights that Macronix is looking into variable sizes for these chips, and people went crazy. Except if they would have scrolled a little further, they would have seen that the same post also highlights that there is no evidence that this is actually for Nintendo, so nobody knows why they're looking at these variable chips. And to round off the week of news, Nintendo showed their greed by telling a fundraiser, you can't play our games at your event. Now, to be fair, the event organizers said that there will be Nintendo games in future events, they just can't do it now, because Nintendo waited till the very last minute to tell them they're not allowed, and there's just not enough time for them to jump through all the hoops in order to get this done before the event happens. And that's everything that I covered this week in gaming, and if you want to find out more details about any of the stories that I talked about today, you can check the videos out in the past, which go a little bit more in depth. And if you want to find out more gaming news, fun facts, or gaming history, make sure you hit that follow button, and I'll see you next time.